yeah. Gone on you with the pick and roll. Younger flame, he in sicko mode.
Right then, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're going to be doing something a bit different. We're not working on any of my cars tonight, we're working on this MK5 GTI here behind me. Now this is a car that's been brought to me for a job doing through my new business venture, S34 Customs. Basically doing all sorts of car work, suspension installs, body work, general servicing, maintenance, parts installing. Only just starting out, probably going to do it on the side for a bit and then see what happens. But if you want any work doing, we're based in Wakefield, West Yorkshire. I'll drop my Instagram here. Check it out, check the page out, give us a follow. If you ever need anything doing, let me know and we'll see what we can sort out. So obviously this isn't my car. Connor's brought me his MK5 Golf GTI for an open air install. This is the exact same roof that I've got on my Polo GTI at home. Done about 7 of these now. They're becoming simple for me now. I've kind of got my technique nailed, so it's about time to start charging people for installs. So that's the job that we're doing in this video. We're installing an open air sunroof. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for a video doing this. I'm going to be doing loads of these installs on loads of different cars. Basically, if your roof's big enough, we can fit an open air in it. I've got some measurements. I'll put this post up now. These are the measurements that you need. So these are like the minimum requirements. Your roof needs to be that size. If it's borderline close, like my Nova was absurdly close, it's kind of hit and miss whether it's going to fit. But have a look at these measurements, and if that'll fit your roof, we can probably put an open air in it. So it'd be nice to see some roofs in like cars that we're never meant to have them. Japanese car, French car, it's always something I've wanted to do. I'd love to put one in a Civic or an EF or something cool like that. Right, so let's get started. So this is your full open air kit. Obviously this big thing here is your big open air. And this is potentially one of the cleanest ones I've ever seen. I'm kind of thinking that it might have been recovered at some point in its life because there's no cracks along the whole thing. Normally with these you start to see some cracks in the creases where they actually fold over from being opened and closed all the time. But this is immaculate. So you've got your spoiler. This open air is obviously out of a loophole because there's a difference in the spoilers, and this one's got the little airflow bits in here. You've got your headlining trim, your wiring, and there your switches. And then obviously on this end you've got your motor and the bracket that holds it in place underneath. So this is Connor's new car. It's obviously in the process of being built, hence it being in primer and mismatch of red and white. It's all dusty on the inside, so if anyone sees any mess, probably want me. I'll put the sheets down. Unfortunately for us, it's still got a full headlining in, so that is going to be the first job to do. Get the full headlining out. That gives us a chance to start mocking up for where the motor's going to sit. The MK5 roof is definitely a lot bigger than a Polo 6N roof, so this is going to have to determine where the motor sits and where the spoiler sits in comparison. But it's nice because we've got a massive area to work with, but I'm going to still have to be able to tuck the motor up away, probably underneath this interior light up there. But we'll have a look once everything's out and we'll be able to start planning away. I've never taken a MK5 headlining out, but it can't be much different to a Polo. So we're going to get to it. That fully closed on my knee. So that's the headlining out finally. Took a lot longer than I expected, but compared to a Polo headlining, there's so many more bits on it. Airbags go all the way down the A-pillar and then follow the roof line all the way to the back. You've got little modules everywhere that you have to plug stuff into, it's crazy. But it's out now. So now that all the headlining's out the way, everything's clear, we've got room to make a cut in it. Just going to mask up the roof now, position the open air on it, and then find the perfect position. So now I've got the open air up on the roof, just placed it on there for now. We're basically going to fiddle around, checking all the measurements side to side. I think it's going to have to move a bit further forward just because, well, this roof's really big. So on the Polo it's almost touching there and it sits about there. But this roof's massive. Obviously your motor sticks off probably about 1.5 inches off the front. But because I want the motor hidden, it has to go in this area here. So the motor has to tuck under here somewhere, which means that I think it's going to have to come further forwards. Luckily we've still got this 6N shell that had a factory open air in it, so we can take measurements from it. So from windscreen to the back we've got about 9.5 to where his cut mark wants to be. That's really the only measurement we need to take, is the front one. So obviously the sides and the back are all different. Because this is a 9.5 inches between there, we're going to position the front of the open air at this black point here, 9.5 inches from there, and that should be like the perfect position for the front. And then as for the sides, we'll just measure them up side to side, back to back, just till we get everything completely square, and then we can mark a line, and that's where we'll be cutting. So now I've got all my measurements bang on. I've written them all down. Just checking and checking and checking. Make sure that everything's perfect before we even attempt to draw a line, because that line's where it's going to end up getting cut. I've maintained the exact same position at the front, being 9.5 inches. That's the exact same as a factory one in a Polo 6N. That works really well. In my 9.3 I didn't have the option because I had to push it as far forward as I could just to get it in with this, but luckily we're blessed with a massive roof in this GTI, so this is going to work out well. This is the really awkward bit, because there's this massive overhang here and basically all the way around. Drawing this square around it, the outline, it's quite difficult. You're just going to be patient and get it on a bit of an angle. All the prep work done, and now we're ready to cut the roof. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start off by cutting along the straight lines with a grinding disc, and then for the corners we're going to use a jigsaw with a metal cutting blade in. The other bit that you've got to cut when you're doing this is the support beam on the inside. You'll see this big beam that runs across the middle. Obviously in a factory open air they won't have this support beam anyway, and the reason for that is this big metal brace that holds the whole thing in gives you enough structural integrity to allow to not have it, basically. So you don't have to worry about chopping that out, because you've got this massive beam that runs the whole way around, and that basically stiffens up the whole roof. So that's all the interior covered up now, just to protect it all from any metal filings and dust. So now what we're going to do, we're going to start chopping this roof. Skip to the time lapses. Angles. So we've cut all the straights now with the grinder. We're just going to use the jigsaw now and go around the corners. That's the roof cut out then. Guarantee this isn't going to be the first cut. We never managed to get it bang on first time, and we always try and estimate to get it smaller and then grind it bigger, because if you get it too big the first time, you're in for a nightmare. I don't even know what you'd have to do if you did that. But yeah, what we're going to do now is we're going to trial fit the actual open air in, see where it don't fit in places, and then we'll get the sanding disc on the grinder and we'll just go around and flap off the areas until it fits. You can see that it doesn't fit yet. I've got one corner placed in. It is very close, to be fair. This is quite a neat cut. On the back we're probably looking at about 2mm off, and down the sides probably about the same. Couple more goes around it with the flappy disc, bit of Sharpie drawing, find out which areas need more off than the others, and then we'll get it in perfect. And that's how you cut a hole for the opener in here. So what we're doing now is we're just bolting up the frame to the opener, and basically what happens is this silver frame here compresses up to the roof, which in turn pulls the open air down tight, so the seal's tight onto the actual top of the roof, and the bottom of this, and the top of this, sorry, is tight to the bottom of the roof, and that basically clamps everything together and gives it some kind of structural strength. So I've got all these screws in now, nice and tight. That means that the open air is fully fitted. So next job now is installing the motor. That's the motor fitted, got the plug in. Haven't wired a switch up yet, so it just runs down here. And we're just going to use a battery to test it. So now we're going to fit the spoiler. When we fit the spoiler, we'll just copy the factory position again. We'll leave about a 10mm gap all the way around. So what you've got on the bottom of your spoiler is 5 little studs with 10mm nuts that go on the bottom and bolt in from underneath the roof. So what you've got to do to mark the correct position of here is basically get anything that you can put on the bottom of the threads to make a point. You can use a bit of paint, toothpaste. I've seen people use all sorts. I'm going to use white touch-up paint. So I'm just going to put a little white blob on top of each of these threads. So I've got 5 white blobs on the top of those threads now, and now I'm going to put it on the roof, mark up the position, and that'll show where we need to drill through. Right, so now I've just got a drill bit. Just going to drill these 5 holes and then we can fit the spoiler. So there we are, I've got 5 holes drilled. I've deburred all the inside of the holes. Now what we're going to do is just put the spoiler in and get it all bolted together. That's the spoiler fitted. So now we're just wiring the motor up to a switch, and we're going to run the wires along here, down the A-pillar, run them down into the fuse box, and we're going to mount a switch in this little cubby hole next to his air controller. So unfortunately we don't have the wiring loom that goes from the motor to the switch. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make our own. But we're just going to strip some wires back, connect them all in, get it fused up into the fuse box and check it. So there we are, I've got the switch all wired up now. We've got it wired into an inline fuse there, and we've got it grounded here. Wires run all the way up here, we're going to tuck them up nice and away. I'll show you that it works. There's the keys. So you can hold it. Now I'm just going to tape it all up, get it all tucked nice and away. So that's all the panels fitted back. This one was already missing, so don't worry about that. Air controller and switch in this little cubby hole. Wires run up there. Now we just need to start refitting the headlining. Lifesaver. So after loads of faffing about, we've finally got the headline fitted, and now we're going to cut it. We're going to go around this edge here with a Stanley knife, just cut around the full length, and then we've got a trim, and we're just going to stick the trim in and stick the headline into the trim. Got everything cut out, and this was sitting quite low, it was sitting about there, and we realised that this bracket here was basically banging on the motor, which is underneath there. So I've just done a bit of cutting away, and now we're free for this to move past the motor without hitting it, and that means that the headline is going to sit nice and tight up to the roof. There we are then, that's the job completely done now. All the headlining's back in, trim's done round the edge, now looks like a complete factory install. Mark 5 Golf GTI with an open air, that looks mint. We've even cleaned all the interior, remember from the beginning of the video, came in dusty, it's now leaving clean. It's very cool to see this in a Mark 5. Well, that's it then. Car's completely finished. Everything's done. Everything looks mint. So we're going to grab some cinematics now. I'm fine without you. I hope those shots did the job justice. It's come out really well. I am really pleased with it. I'm buzzing to see this in a Mark 5. I can't believe how well it's actually worked, to be fair. When you're putting stuff in a car that's never meant to fit in, it's kind of hit and miss whether it's going to look good or whether it's not, but this looks mega. Everything's tucked away nice. It just looks as factory as it can be. Really pleased that that's happened. So I hope everyone's enjoyed watching the video. If you do want to give Connor a follow, see what happens to his car in the future, I'll put his Instagram up here, I'll link it in the bio as well. But that's me for now. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video.